All right, good morning, everyone. This is the 11 o'clock hour of LTUE. Our panel this hour is going to not be mashing ideas together. My goodness, I don't know how that happened. Love languages is part of character design. Thank you for bearing with us. And our panelists today are Rae D'Arc, Julie Wright, and Kenny Baldwin, with J. Campanile as moderator. As a reminder, please check out our online art show. We will have a Q&A section at the end of this panel with questions pulled from the Discord chat room, so please keep your questions in mind for when our volunteer asks for them. Panelists, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you, however many of you there are, for coming to Love Languages as part of character design. We're going to jump right in and introduce ourselves. So let's go ahead and go alphabetic by first name. Rae, you're up.
Hi, my name is Rae D'Arc. I wrote Don't Date the Haunted. It's a dark romantic comedy, and I'm on this panel because I accidentally made it a romance. I used love languages though to go back and strengthen the romantic plots because that happened.
All right, I am J. Campanile. I write primarily romance with a little side of horror/parody. My debut novel, Pride and Poor Judgment, which was just published last month. And I'm obviously pretty big into love languages, writing romance. I feel like they enrich the story and help the reader really get to know your characters on a more personal level, and even beyond the romance, they can enrich the friendships.
I'm Julie Wright, and I write for Shadow Mountain Proper Romance line. Shadow Mountain's Proper Romance line. Usually I can say that a little bit more clearly. But I love romance. I love love. I think love is what makes our world a better place to be in. And my newest book that's going to be coming out in a couple of weeks is Captain for Caroline Gray. I'm kind of excited about that. And it is my very first Regency actual period, historical type of thing. So it's about the fishing fleet women of the Regency period, which I think is really fascinating and super, super interesting. So and also, by the way, guys, I think your titles of your books, Don't Date the Haunted and Pride and Poor Judgment, those are great titles. Way to go, you. So I'm excited. I love language and love and to be here.
Well, great. I'm Kenny Baldwin, and I a few years ago started an indie. I'd probably call it a micro publishing label, I guess. Called.
Kenny, can
you not hear me? Am I?
I can hear Ken.
Oh, you can hear me fine. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I started a very small label called Ibernian Books, and I write historical fantasy, and then our label publishes like a lot of sweet contemporary romance. And so we talk a lot about love languages. I love using love languages, particularly as like a way to evidence character growth and the way that characters kind of interact with the other people around them. So I use it less, I think, for developing romantic relationships as much as I do even just for character likability and things like that. But excited to be here, excited to represent the other. I always mix up how chromosomes work, actually. But anyway, here I am, the male perspective on the issue.
We're glad you're here, Kenny. All right, Thanks. So let's first start off by getting everyone on the same page, just defining the love languages. So we have just the Gary Chapman 5 love languages: physical touch, words of affirmation, quality time. There are 2 more.
Service.
Acts of service and gifts. So are there any misunderstandings that you have seen around any of those love languages, and can we help kind of define those terms?
Well, I guess I could start. I do think some of the maybe one of the most tricky ones to understand is, at least I consider, is physical touch, because most relationships are going to have a degree of physical touch, and in a romantic relationship, physical touch is something very different than it is in a relationship where there's not that romance. And so from what I understand, when I was talking to someone about love languages, a great way they put it to me was rather than asking what you believe somebody or yourself experiences love in best, you can almost flip the question and ask what would hurt the most if it was taken away. And so that really helped me put some contours around physical touch as a love language, where it's like, well, okay, if there was absolutely no touching, would that bother you? And some people would say, no, that'd be great. And others are like, absolutely not. We are always touching. And that's, so I think that's one, at least I've had trouble kind of understanding.
Yeah, for me, I've seen a lot of misunderstanding with words of affirmation. So it's not just cheerleading, like you're saying, yay, you did a great job, yay, you did this awesome thing. It's validating emotions, saying, hey, that must have been really hard for you, you doing okay? It's more than just saying, yay, you're great.
I'm going to I can't hear Kenny, so if I repeat anything that he says, and I'm really sad that I can't hear him because
You haven't muted.
I've been on panels with him before, and he's so smart. I know he's got amazing things to say. So I'm actually really disappointed because I was looking forward to hearing his thoughts because he's great. So if I accidentally repeat something he says, I'm super sorry. But yeah, I agree that words of affirmation is definitely more than just cheerleading. It's being there on an intellectual level a lot. That's how I look at it.
And I think time, a lot of people feel like they need to be doing other things with time. But it's really just, being there for them. Being that, being availability. And just, I don't know, like with, or I don't know, just so many thoughts. But
I think what you mean with like,
oh no, go on.
with your time, like you said, with quality time, people think, well, quality time, that means we need to go skydiving or something. We need to do something just grand and huge. And with quality time, you don't have to do something grand or huge. Quality time can be just cuddling and watching the sun go down. I mean, quality time is just time. And it doesn't have to be this grand, huge adventure. It can just be being there. I love that.
Okay.
Good.
I mean,
Putting my
from
thoughts together, it's not like you need to spend a whole year together, because generally in books you don't have all that time unless you have a whole bunch of backstory. And so it's really just to have enough time to show that they know each other, that they know who one another is, that they understand one another.
Kenny, you had something to say?
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, like speaking from someone, I'm married to a person whose love language is quality time, and that is probably also my primary love language, which in some ways is like the worst because like it takes up so much time. My wife and I, we went through law school together, and we had like a lot of the same classes, and there were stretches where it was like 20 hours a day or 22 hours a day we'd be together, and a lot of people would really dislike that, but for us it was just like, this is great. But so anyway, I think it's not so much about like big events, it's just kind of that knowing that constant presence, and you can always command their full attention if you so require it.
Yeah, just being there. All right, good. So we're going to move on to the next question. So how do you choose a love language for a character, or how do you find that develops as you're writing or outlining?
As with somebody who assigned their love languages after I wrote the book, and then as I was editing and redrafting and making it more appropriate for the genre, just looking at the characters, knowing who they are. I did assign a love language to each character. Like for instance, the main character is from horror, so her love language is time because she doesn't, a lot of people die around her, and so she needs that time, and she feels, in her personal opinion, is that everything else can be faked. and she is all about what's real, what's right, what's what's true, and so she's just a no nonsense girl, just like I don't care for fluff, and she needs people that she relies on very much. Versus spoiler alert, the love interest, his is words of affirmation, and so because he has been just beat on a lot of just that's his character. He has not had a lot of words of affirmation. And so when they have this conversation where they bolster each other up of like, hey, I understand what you've been through. And that's like a big moment for him to even, yeah. And so, and then each other character, I have a contemporary character from contemporary romance, and she's all about physical touch. And so they're cuddling on the couch and just being awkward. The main character's like, what are you doing? Yeah.
I think C. Rae has a really great point about kind of like approaching a love language in almost a strategic way. In real life, it's almost just kind of not luck of the draw, but you're kind of a product of your circumstance, and you have the luxury writing to be able to go in and say, okay, what love language is going to make it most interesting, and what's going to connect best with the character. And so I love what she said about, well, it's a horror book, and so like time is in short supply, and choosing that to be the love language is a really strategic and smart craft choice, because suddenly there's always going to be a deficit. I tried to do something similar in my book, The Crimson Inkwell, and it's particularly about a sister and her younger sister. They grew up in kind of a poorer part of town, and as a consequence, gifts were kind of the love language I chose for her, where it's like there's not money to go around, but even if you can find something small to gift to the younger sister, like it means an awful lot. And so I think it's a smart craft choice, and I think it's cool that you were really intentional about like, okay, what's the love language going to be? Let's make it the hardest thing possible. I think that's great.
For me, I don't plan ahead when I'm writing. I don't plan, okay, this is going to be her love language, this is going to be his love language. I don't assign characters that. I kind of like C. Rae. I let them kind of dictate their own love languages as the character progresses through the book. And so, I have like the book that I'm currently writing. I have a character who was horrifically abused in a previous marriage, and so her love language is very much a words of affirmation. It's definitely not physical touch, because physical touch is a little frightening for her, and so it's definitely words of affirmation, and that comes from her background. And as she developed as a character, her love language developed along with her as far as my writing goes. And then sometimes I have to go back in and kind of reinforce the love language from the beginning, because I'm very much a discovery writer. That's the nice term for I'm a pantser. And so it's one of those things where so it's one of those things where sometimes you have to go back to the beginning and do a little bit of reinforcement, but it's something that I do discover as the character goes on. I think that might be interesting to try signing ahead of time, but I don't know that would actually end up ultimately working for me. I don't think my writing style would allow it, because I'd probably change it halfway through anyway.
Yeah, I like what you said, Julie, about discovering it as you go. I'm a plantser, so that means I have an outline, and then my muse sets it on fire. So when I was writing Pride and Poor Judgment, I didn't know Elliot or Darcy's love language, and I was just kind of figuring this out as I went. And at first I thought, oh, Darcy is definitely words of affirmation. She definitely needs that validation. But as I was going on, I realized, wait a minute, the things she does to show her brother, her best friend, later on Elliot, that she loves them are gifts. And so I had to kind of restructure that and figure out, okay, what are we doing, going back and reinforcing. So the next question, how do you use a character's love language to build their relationships, both platonic, familial, and romantic?
So I think it's going to change depending on which love language you have for a character. Some of them are much easier to write in than others because, like gifts is like, great, look, they're picking something out for the person. They're very excited. Look, now they're giving it to them. Look how they reacted. Okay, great. We're moving on. But something more subtle, right? Like physical touch, which is going to be happening in some respect anyway between characters, or quality time, you have to find ways to clue the reader in, and not like overly on the top, like on the nose type of ways to do it, but to kind of make it clear to the reader that this is where the character's going to feel comfortable, and then just help them identify when there's that lack, when there's not that lack. And I think the point of view you're choosing to write in will really help clue you into how you're gonna let the reader know that. A first person novel is going to be very, very different than a third person limited or something in that respect, where you're trying to help the reader see, and how exactly you'll help the reader see, like, look, this relationship's going great because they're spending a lot of time together, or look, this is going great because of all this wonderful conversation that's very it's built on affirmation. And so I think that there are some nuances there, and that's kind of part of the fun of it.
I think one of the I use the love languages mostly because, or like my alpha readers were saying they didn't feel the connection as much, and so I use the love languages more as a way to help the reader fall in love with my characters, because they had their own, or readers will have their own love languages, and so if I went through and made sure I hit every single point that they that somewhere in there the reader would say, oh, that was a sweet moment. And even though they have lots of moments now because I hit every single one, but it's I would hit the reader's point at least once in there, as they go through, as gifts are exchanged, or as words are given, and as they spend the time together, and then as they eventually have to fight for their lives together.
Yeah, Julie, did you have anything to add?
I loved what Rae said with the I so wish I could hear Kenny. I'm serious, you guys. I know he's just brilliant, and then you guys laugh at something he says. I'm like, I am so missing out, and I know
Do
I
you
am.
have
And it
him
breaks my
on
heart.
mute personally? Maybe.
No, there's no way
YouTube
to personally
channel
mute
can
somebody that
hear
I'm
him.
aware of.
We can hear him,
I
but
don't know. I don't know how to make it work. But I know I'm missing out, and I'm so sad about it because he's so brilliant. Sad day, but
you'll just have to watch it again.
Right. I really will. But just so I can go back and hear the good points, because I know he's got great things. But so it's like, I hate talking because it's like I just missed something brilliant. Anyway, I love the idea of love languages being brought, not just with the characters, the romantic interests. I think it's important to include members of the family, and it helps to cement the love language of the point of view character. When you have their friends and their family members kind of also playing into that love language and what they do for them, and how are they acting towards their mom or to their daughter or to their best friend or whatever, how are they interacting in that way? And you're going to see that love language shine not just through how they interact with the love interest, but with everybody that is part of the cast of the book. And I think that enriches the entire story, and it cements how that character speaks love.
Yeah. One of the most heartbreaking scenes in Pride and Poor Judgment that I wrote was, I'm like, without spoiling things, Darcy is having this conflict with her brother, and she's done a lot for him to show him she loves him, but she royally screwed up because she hurt him in his love language, and it's taking a long time to recover from that. And so you get to see this moment where she thinks that her brother's going to come home and he doesn't, and Darcy's just having this realization of he might never come back. He may hate me for the rest of time and all eternity. And of course, you know, that's a little bit of teenage drama, but I loved being able to explore the dynamic that Darcy and her brother had. So on that note, how can you use the love languages to create conflict, both interpersonal and circumstantially?
I think you make a good point of one character hurting another person through the use of their love language. So if your character's love language is, say, gifts, and they give this incredible gift to this person to show how much they love them, and she just looks at it and she's like, oh, well, you know, I don't really like whatever you just gave me or something, that would be very hurtful to the person whose love language is gift, because they're basically rejecting their love by saying, oh, you know, I don't really like that or whatever. And then they're going to feel like, oh, well, she just rejected me, and he's going to be very sad. And or you could have the opposite, where, you know, somebody goes in and their love language is service, so they go in, and I don't remember what book it was, but where she was very, very, very tidy. This person, she was like incredibly neat and organized, and she goes and sees his environment. His environment is just a disaster. There's just stuff thrown everywhere. He's a very creative musical person, and so this is the environment where he thrives. And so she decides one day she's going to do this wonderful act of service, and she goes and cleans his space. And he's furious with her because she cleaned his space, and now he can't find anything. And he's supposed to be writing this song, and he can't. His muse is gone because he doesn't know where anything is, and his world has been turned upside down. And he's mad, and so now she feels like, well, he's just rejected me, and he's mad at her because she just screwed up his whole life. And it's a good way to create conflict through the love language, where one person thinks, oh, I'm doing something great to show this person how much I care, and the other person is like, are you stupid kidding me? What were you thinking? This was such a bad idea. And so it's just, I think that's a great way to create conflict.
Like, kind of piggybacking on what Julie's saying, I think there's a master class available for this exact topic in the latest season of The Crown on Netflix. If anybody has watched that, I won't spoil it, but there's a scene between Princess Diana and Prince Charles where she has prepared a birthday present for him in her love language, and he just absolutely, I mean, not only does he not understand it, he considers it repulsive, you know. And it's so frustrating to be on the outside of a relationship and see someone put so much effort in and just see the disconnect. It's almost like if you weren't really into politics and you've just been reading the news lately or something like that, you know, where it's like, wow, all these people are talking about the same thing and they're just like missing each other. And I think that is one of my favorite types of conflict when it comes to love languages. It's just the ships passing in the night type of conflict, because it's very hard to unravel that. And it's really hard not only to say, you know, hey, you punched me, that hurt. And it's like, oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have punched you. You know, like that's a really basic type of conflict compared to, look, you hurt me in a way. I have to teach you to understand the way in which you hurt me before we can even start resolving it, which I think is really fun. And just, there's so much to unpack there.
Well, and love languages, well, yeah, just they have limitations. Like, I didn't know my love language for significant others was physical touch because they were always long distance. All my relationships were long distance, so I didn't know that I liked physical touch. Then I got married, I'm like, cuddles! So if your love language is physical touch during this COVID time, everybody's like, where I need the hugs. They're just missing those hugs. And similarly, like if you have a character whose love language is time, but they're a workaholic, or they just have so many other things going on that they're not able to spend that time with someone else, it can create a conflict there. And just with every love language can have a limitation. It's like it's almost like a magic or a science or whatever. Like, it's not perfect. It doesn't solve everything. It has flaws.
Good. Yeah, all really good points. So next question. So sometimes people like to give and receive different love languages, and sometimes it varies from person to person which one you want to receive or give in those relationships. So how do you incorporate that into compelling character relationships?
Okay, there we go. I've definitely noticed this in myself. I love physical touch from my significant others, but other people, I don't care. Don't hug me. I don't care. And so, and just kind of analyze how you yourself. I think I've seen some things in the comments as well of people noticing that they have different love languages that they like to receive versus what they like to give. And yeah, like if you notice that in yourself, or if you are here listening about this and you learn it, and yeah, you can definitely use that to build the relationships between your characters. Like, okay.
Yeah, I think something I find really interesting is the intersection between different types of love languages. Because if you look at love languages, it's easy to say, well, okay, there's 5 of them, and here they are, and very nice. But when you think about it, you really have, 25 different possible interactions, if you're talking about a relationship between 2 people. And it's very fun to explore, okay, this person, it's even more than 25 though too, right? Because if you really read into it, people have a love language that they give love. They also have possibly a different love language where they want to receive love from somebody. And so the combinations, I think, are where the magic happens. If you have someone who just loves to give gifts in order to express themselves and how they feel about someone else, and you have someone else who just wants to receive physical touch so bad, those, I think, when you can find some winning combinations there, you can make it very, very compelling, right? Like a scene in which, imagine a scene written 2 different ways, but it's the exact same timeline, right? One is from the perspective of someone so excited to give this gift to another person, if they've spent all this time picking it out and they're all excited. And then you write the same chapter from the recipient, who does not receive love from gifts. Instead, they are just craving physical touch. And so the moment they're looking forward to is that very quick second where the gift exchange happens, and they'll get to like touch their hand to get and for them, that was just like amazing. Those 2 different scripts, you could have some really compelling moments where it's like, I'm intending this, but the other person's taking this from the interaction. And so I think, yeah, when you just dive into the characters themselves and really get to know them, and then deciding how each character wants to make the relationship work, like if both people are both totally invested, they're going to find ways to get what they need, like thanks for the gift. Let me give you a big hug to say thank you. And this is great. This was what I wanted. I wanted a gift so I could hug you. But if one person's not invested in making it happen, there's a lot of compelling scenes and choices you can make there.
Yeah. So in Pride and Poor Judgment, Darcy gives love through gifts, but receives it through acts of service. And so, and she does not understand words of affirmation at all, which is unfortunate because that's the love interest's love language. So she is sliding him up and down because it's Pride and Prejudice, and doesn't realize that she's digging her own grave. And when she finally it clicks for her, not like, oh, Elliot's language is words of affirmation. It doesn't click on that conscious of a level. But when she realizes, oh, he really likes it when I like compliment him, when I say he's doing good stuff, when I say like, hey, how did that feel? Are you okay? And vice versa, when Elliot realizes, oh, she really likes when people do things for her. She really likes to do these things for other people, and just watching that develop, and through all the misunderstandings and comedy of Pride and Prejudice, it was just really fun to watch these two idiots slowly fall in love with each other.
Guys, I'm going to excuse myself for just a second, and I'm going to leave and then try and come back in so that I can hear Kenny too, because I'm hoping that will work. So, but really fast before I go, I just wanted to say that I love the idea of understanding what you give versus what you get. My love language, when I finally took the little test, I had to take it for one of my classes. I went to college late as an elderly person. I went to college, and one of the classes I took, I had to take this test on my love language. I'd never even thought about really my love language before that moment. And it's funny because I do write romance, and I'd already had like 12 books written by this time. So you would think that I would have paid attention to that, but I didn't. And I found that I'm actually pretty equal, all things equal. I love touch. I love words of affirmation. I love service. I love gifts. I love it all. And equally, except gifts. I don't love to receive gifts. I love to give gifts. And so it's very interesting. And so I think that understanding how you give versus how you receive, the ebb and flow of your love language is really important to be paying attention to. So, and I'm going to excuse myself now. So you guys go ahead, talk. And you can even talk about me, and I won't know because I'm leaving. So,
something Julie just said reminded me of, another fabulous masterclass in love languages, which is Parks and Recreation, where Leslie Knope understands love languages like no one else does. And there's this fabulous episode where Ron Swanson, the libertarian guy working for the city government, which is, I mean, by the way, what a character to write, right? Like just from the very bare bones of he's a libertarian that doesn't believe in government working for the city government. So good.
I love Ron Swanson.
He's so funny. But then, the idea that there's an episode for his birthday, Leslie is like terrorizing him with like, oh, hi, Julie, can you hear me now?
I'm so excited to hear you.
Julie and I were in a panel yesterday and that I was moderating, and I couldn't see, everyone else could see her, but I couldn't see her. So it's like, I feel like after so long, we're finally connecting back and forth. But so in this episode, with Ron Swanson's birthday, and he's so afraid of what Leslie Knope's going to do because she always overdoes everything. She knows exactly the birthday present to give to him because she has spent the time not to say, how do I want to give him a birthday present, but what is the exact thing Ron Swanson would love more than anything for his birthday? For him, it was watching like old Westerns in a room by himself with a big plate of bacon and a glass of bourbon, and like the door was locked and no one would bother. And she just knew that, It's just that's a great scene for love languages, I think, as well.
Yeah, that's a really, really great example. I think at this point we can, if there are audience questions, open it up for audience questions. Otherwise, we can keep rambling at you.
All right,
or I can keep rambling, and these other three can, dispense great wisdom.
All right, we do have quite a few, so we'll go ahead and get started on those. So first we have from Myra Kareen. How might love languages be shown for younger characters, like kids or teens, versus adults, versus people who've been in a relationship a long time?
I could talk about, at least from what I've noticed about people who've been in a relationship for a very, very long time, is, again, I keep bringing in TV, but if there's another great scene from Everybody Loves Raymond, where the two grandparents are sitting there and they just have, it becomes very, very evident they have their own language and system down perfectly, that from the outside looks totally dysfunctional. And so it seems to me that the longer you're in a relationship, the more you understand just how little your partner or the other person in that relationship does not value certain love languages. And so you stop trying in those. You know what I mean? It's like this person, like it's crazy to think of like a spouse never getting their spouse birthday presents. You know, it's like, how can you not get them birthday? You give them birthday presents. It's their birthday. But if they're like, oh no, I tried that for 30 years, they don't care, you know. It's like from the outside, that's nuts. It's so I think that is kind of what I see on those really long relationships. They just drop the fluff, cut the fat, and they're like, no, we got one thing we do, it works, our system's good, you know. That's kind of fun.
Yeah, with kids, you can kind of see it as they're developing and emerging. And if your kid is a hugger, you might consider that, or if your character is a hugger, you might consider that their love language is physical touch. Something I saw the other day, and I don't know how much truth there is to this, but it would be worth exploring. Is your love language is the language that you weren't given as a child.
I think kids
That is
also
interesting.
mimic. Oh, sorry. Like they're still figuring out the world. They don't really know who they are themselves, so they are just testing everything out. Of course, it's not like they're kissing or anything, but like it's just in books and stories. It's like I saw my parents hold hands, so it's like they mimic. They, monkey see, monkey do. They are just learning, and they don't entirely know what it means, but like it's just the experiment of trying, learning, and figuring things out.
Julie, anything to add?
I think that those were both great answers. I don't even have anything to add to that. I love, it's if somebody were to look at my husband's relationship and with me, we really have cut the fat. We know what works for us and we know what doesn't, and we just kind of go off of that. We have, and yet at the same time, I see my little grandson who's brand new, and his love language is obviously touch. He is so huggy and sweet, and man, he hugs his stuffed animals, and he hugs the dogs, and he hugs everybody who comes into the house, and he is just super loving in that way. It's just adorable. But so it's interesting that at a year and a half, you can see a love language already emerging in him, and it's kind of adorable.
Awesome. Let's go right to the next question.
All right, so next, is there a love language that readers prefer in a main character? And that is from J. Abram Barnack.
I think readers will identify with the love language that they speak and receive. So if you communicate in acts of service, you're going to, especially for romance readers, you're going to love the books that default to acts of service, showing the relationship.
I would agree. And then I would put an asterisk next to my agreement, because I think that love languages are something that if you're writing outside of your own love language, there is the potential that you handle it quite sloppily. And so you could write a really poor manifestation of someone else's love language because you don't understand it well enough. And so there is a bit of research there to do, and it's awkward research because you have to have awkward conversations with people who have that love language, about like, so tell me, that time I did this for you, could you give me like a 1 to 10 or something? Like, how good was that? And so I think that that's exactly right. The people are going to identify with what they have, and it's on you. It's your job to make sure you are representing that well and masterfully.
Anyone else have anything to add?
Little piggyback, as those are both very on top of just there isn't really one specific that like you do this and everybody's going to get you happy. Like generally, sure, every romance will have a kiss or something, teen, adult, whatever. If you don't have a kiss, people might be a little disappointed. But similarly, like you're just if you don't have them spending time together, people will be, or just having those other, you need to hit all of them pretty much if you want to satisfy everybody. Did we lose our moderator?
We
Yeah.
did. Give us just a second here.
She went backstage to get a drink.
What's that? I've got the Discord up here. Somebody just asked a question that is like right connected to the one we just talked about, so it might be a good follow-up while we're waiting. They said, if readers are attracted to their own, wouldn't it be a good idea to write characters' relationships that kind of, walk the whole spectrum, so to speak? Is there an argument to be had for writing a character that kind of uses basically to write a Julie who loves all the love languages except receiving gifts?
But I like to give them, so one could
There
argue
you
that
go.
gifts is a love language too, because I love to give gifts and see the surprise and happiness on somebody else's. I don't know. So I think that there's a good argument for that. I think Rae said that at the very beginning, that she experienced that when she tries to touch on all of them, so that at least readers can connect to one scene. Oh, there was that one moment in that one scene. I loved that you said that earlier. That was a really great, astute kind of observation. I think that also with an asterisk, you can get into, by trying to be everything, you end up being nothing. When everybody's super, nobody is, kind of a situation. So I think that if you tried really hard to just jam it all in there, it would just be, I don't know, it would be really, really hard. I think to touch on each one would probably be okay. And then to really hone in on the one that is that character, I think that would work better. But I don't know. I think we're all different.
Love that,
Write
because I
what you
think
know. Sorry.
right, what you know. And the what am I trying to say? I think the biggest danger I am always afraid of when I start thinking, oh, okay, this character's this love language, is just, I think readers are always on the lookout for like the Inception characters in their mind, trying to plant emotions or something. And so the moment that your writing comes off as like a gimmick to try to say, look, this is their love language, and that can happen if you're trying to run the gauntlet, or it can happen if you've just doubled down on this is their one love language. If it just starts to become like a mechanical tool, I think it's gonna pull readers out. So if you choose 2 or 3 and you can pull them off, great. I think the concept is true. Yeah, you're more likely to have more scenes that will resonate with more readers. But you will want to have probably. I know when I send works out to like my beta readers, I have a survey that accompanies with it that has a lot of free form response kind of spaces, but then there are also some really specific questions I want from them. And that might be a great specific question to say, was there any moment that you felt like you did not understand how this person communicated their feelings, or something, some artful, beautiful question that I can't word right now.
All right, I think we have time for one more question, and then just quickly wrap up with closing thoughts / tell the attendees where you'll be the next hour, or if you have exciting things.
All right, so our last question is going to be from Epidantrix. And speaking as an aromantic person, and thus someone with extremely limited romantic experience, is differing love languages for romance versus platonic or familial love a common thing, or something worth exploring in a character?
It can be, and it's definitely something worth exploring, but you can have a character who is, you can have a character like Rae, where she likes to receive physical touch, but only from her spouse, and everyone else it's something different. You can also have a character that just really speaks words of affirmation across the board, and that's what they like to receive from just everybody. So it's really individual. Does anyone else have thoughts?
Well, and Gary Chapman, who compiled these books about the 5 love languages, has written love languages for teens, love languages for spouses, love languages, there's this entire series of these love languages, and how, and for kids, and just how each age approaches them differently and reacts to them differently or gives them differently. And we kind of touched on that earlier with the, an old elderly couple versus the kids. It will be different. but then also kind of similar. Of the five love the five stay constant. They're always the same thing. They're just received or shown in different ways depending on how serious the relationship is or how new it might be, or yeah.
Yeah, I second. Well answered, you two.
Right.
Good job.
So let's kind of wrap up here. Let's go reverse alphabetical with just parting thoughts and tell us where you'll be, about your books, anything.
Alphabetical, that means I'm first. Yay for my pen name. So yeah, my book Don't Date the Haunted. It is currently on sale on Amazon, just for this weekend for LTUE because I love you guys. And it is, you can also find me tomorrow, 1 p.m. Mountain Time, in Horror for the Sensitive Soul. I guess you can guess why. And
That was like great.
I do have the sequel for this book coming out in April, so that's what I'm looking forward to right now.
All right. I will be on Modifying Behaviors, Realistic, Respectful, Plot Essential, Neurodiverse Character Behaviors. That was a long title, but it's next hour in the Anne McCaffrey room. And I have my debut novel, Pride and Poor Judgment, on Amazon. It's currently available on Kindle Unlimited. I'll drop a link in the Discord chat if there's anyone interested.
And my next panel is, dang, I lost my page. I had it and now it's gone. It's at 5, I believe. I'm pretty sure that's when it is. Yeah.
Oh yeah, this is the revising dialogue, Julie.
Yeah. That
Yeah, I'm there with you. 5 o'clock.
Nice. I hope I get to hear all the things you say because really, you do have great things to say. So, not even just kidding. There, you're super well spoken. So, on dialogue 5 o'clock in the Anne McCaffrey room, and like I said, my book is coming out in 2 weeks. I'm super excited for Captain for Caroline Gray because it's just really interesting, and I loved that I love the time period. Jane Austen's clearly my hero in all things, and I just think she's amazing. So really looking forward to that. And something new also that I'm excited about is I have a young adult that is currently being shopped around right now. That's, oh guys, it's so good. It's one of those things. I finished it. I'm like, oh, I wrote that. It's just super exciting. when you get done, you're like, wow, that happened. It's pretty amazing. Anyway.
That's great. Awesome. My next thing, I'll be in the J.R.R. Tolkien room at 3 p.m. I'll be moderating a contract law and society panel, drawing on my legal roots. But I'm also looking for some review readers for the first book in my Gaslamp fantasy series, The Crimson Inkwell. And so I'll be on the public Discord server for LTUE. If you are interested in reading it and possibly leaving a root, go ahead and just send me a message. I'm soliciting friend requests, I guess, on Discord. So by all means, I would love to talk with you and get you a copy.
All right, thank you to our audience and everyone who asked questions. I'm so sorry we couldn't get to them all. We will end the panel here, and thank you again.